In the heart of sunny California, where palm trees whisper with the ocean breeze, stood a restaurant that was more than just an establishment. It was a true legend. It was called the Golden Saloon, and it was famous not only for its exquisite cuisine, but also for its history. It was said that the most famous people on the planet had dined here, from rock stars to politicians. But few knew that the owner of this place was none other than Clint Eastwood himself, a living icon of Hollywood, a man whose name had become synonymous with coolness and charisma. That evening, the restaurant was packed. The light from the chandeliers reflected off the crystal glasses, and the air was filled with the aromas of fine wines and juicy steaks. Amid all this luxury, one person stood out, a young waiter named Jake. He was a newcomer but had already gained a reputation among his colleagues as a guy with a sharp tongue and an equally sharp sense of self-importance. Jake was convinced that his place was not here, but somewhere on stage or in movies, and he considered serving guests to be a temporary job, unworthy of his talents. And then, in the midst of the evening, he walked in. Clint Eastwood. His entrance was like a thunderclap in a clear sky. Everyone froze, the patrons, the waiters, even the chefs in the kitchen. But not Jake. Of course, he recognized the celebrity, but he decided that this was the perfect moment to show that he wasn't impressed by anyone's achievements. "Table for one?" Jake asked with sarcasm in his voice, not even bothering to smile. Clint, ignoring the tone, nodded and sat down at a table by the window. He ordered a medium-rare steak and a glass of rare wine, which, as it later turned out, was from his personal collection. Jake, instead of showing respect, merely snorted and walked away, muttering something under his breath about how stars think they can get away with anything. When the order was ready, Jake brought it over, but did so with an air of someone doing a favor. He set the plate down with such a clatter that the fork jumped and fell to the floor. "Your steak," he said with obvious mockery. "Hope you like it, though. Judging by your looks, you haven't been able to tell good from bad for a long time." Clint looked up. His gaze was so piercing that Jake felt a chill run down his spine. But gathering his courage, he added, "You know we usually respect customers who behave decently here, and you didn't even say thank you. Maybe they didn't teach you good manners in Hollywood?" The restaurant fell silent. Even the music seemed to stop. Clint slowly smiled but said nothing. Jake, deciding he had won, proudly walked away. However, a few minutes later, the restaurant manager approached him, pale as a sheet and trembling like a leaf. "Jake, do you know who you just insulted?" he whispered, as if afraid the devil himself might hear his words. "Well, Clint Eastwood," Jake shrugged. "So what? Is he going to complain?" "Let him try. I'll show him who's boss." The manager rolled his eyes and clutched his heart as if he were about to have a heart attack. "Jake, you don't understand. Clint Eastwood isn't just a guest. He's the owner of this restaurant. Heck, he owns half the city. You just insulted a man who could, with one phone call, send you to the other side of the world, where even Wi-Fi doesn't reach." Jake felt the ground slip out from under him. He suddenly remembered how, a week ago, he had signed his employment contract, but hadn't even bothered to read who owned the place. Now he was standing in front of his boss, who, by all appearances, was not too impressed with his behavior. A few minutes later, Clint called Jake over to his table. The waiter, trembling like a leaf, approached. A crowd of onlookers had gathered around, seemingly waiting for the show to begin. "Young man," Clint began in his signature low voice, which sounded like rolling thunder, "there are moments in life when you need to be more humble and respectful. Today you've shown that you have problems with that, but I believe people can change. So you have a choice. Either learn to respect others or find a new job. It's up to you." Jake, stunned, nodded. He realized he had made a huge mistake, and now he had a chance to fix it. From that day on, he became a different person, more attentive, polite, and respectful to every guest. And Clint Eastwood, despite the incident, decided to give him a second chance. After all, as Clint himself had said in one of his movies, everyone deserves a chance to fix their mistakes. But the story didn't end there. A month after the incident, Jake received an envelope. Inside was a ticket to the premiere of Clint Eastwood's new film, and a note: "You made the right choice. Now show that you can be not just a good waiter, but a good person. Good luck, Clint." From then on, Jake became not only the best waiter at the Golden Saloon, but also a local legend. His story spread throughout the city and people came to the restaurant not just for the food, but to hear it firsthand. And Clint Eastwood, as always, remained an enigma, a man who could be stern but always fair. Several months had passed since that fateful evening when Jake received a life lesson from none other than Clint Eastwood himself. He had become a model waiter, and his story even inspired some of his colleagues to be more attentive to their guests. The Golden Saloon was thriving, and Jake began to feel that he had finally found his place in life. But fate, as always, had an unexpected twist in store for him. One evening, as the restaurant was filled with guests, a woman walked into the dining room. She was dressed in an elegant black dress, and her hair shimmered like gold under the light of the chandeliers. Everyone, including Jake, froze, captivated by her beauty. She approached the hostess stand and requested a table for one. Jake, as the most experienced waiter, volunteered to serve her. "Good evening," he said with the most charming smile he could muster. "My name is Jake, and I'll be your waiter tonight. What would you like to order?" The woman smiled, and her smile was so dazzling that Jake momentarily lost his ability to speak. "I've heard that your steak here is the best in town," she said. "Please bring me that, and a glass of your finest wine." Jake nodded and hurried to the kitchen to personally oversee the preparation of her order. He had a feeling that this woman was no ordinary guest. There was something mysterious in her eyes, something that made his heart beat faster. When he brought her order, the woman thanked him with such warmth that Jake felt his cheeks flush. They began to talk, and the conversation stretched on. She introduced herself as Isabella and shared that she was traveling the world in search of inspiration for her new book. Jake, in turn, told her his story, how he had nearly lost his job due to his arrogance, but had become a better person thanks to Clint Eastwood. "Clint Eastwood?" Isabella said, surprised. "He truly is a great man. But you know, Jake, sometimes fate gives us chances that we don't even notice." Jake didn't quite understand what she meant, but decided not to press further. The evening went perfectly, and as Isabella left, she handed him her phone number. "Call me if you want to find out what a real adventure is," she said with a mysterious smile. Jake couldn't resist. He called her the next day and they arranged to meet. Isabella suggested he join her on her travels, and Jake, without hesitation, agreed. He quit his job at the restaurant, leaving a note for Clint Eastwood thanking him for everything he had done for him. But that's when things got really interesting. It turned out that Isabella wasn't just a writer. She was the daughter of one of the most influential people in the world, a billionaire who owned a chain of luxurious hotels across the globe. Her journey wasn't just about finding inspiration. It was a secret mission to find talented individuals who could help her manage her father's empire. Jake, with his charisma and ability to connect with people, was perfect for the role. Isabella offered him a place on her team, and he accepted. Together, they traveled halfway around the world, visiting luxurious hotels and meeting some of the most powerful people on the planet. Jake, who had once been a brash waiter, was now the face of one of the most prestigious companies in the world. But one day during their travels, Jake received a letter from Clint Eastwood. It contained just a few words. "You made the right choice, but remember, true strength isn't in money or power, but in the ability to stay true to yourself. Good luck. Clint." Jake realized Clint was right. He decided to use his newfound opportunities to help others. Together with Isabella, they created a charitable foundation that supported young people dreaming of changing their lives. And what about the Golden Saloon? The restaurant became even more popular, and now it featured a portrait of Jake with the caption, "From waiter to dreamer, everyone can change their destiny." Years passed. Jake, the once brash waiter, had become a successful businessman and philanthropist. Together with Isabella, they built an empire that not only generated profit, but also helped thousands of people around the world. Their charitable foundation supported young people, opened schools in impoverished regions, and gave opportunities to those who, like Jake once had, dreamed of changing their lives. Despite all his success, Jake never forgot his roots. He often reminisced about that evening at the Golden Saloon when Clint Eastwood had taught him the lesson that changed everything. And so, during one of his rare visits to California, Jake decided to revisit the old restaurant. The Golden Saloon still shone with its golden light, but now its walls were adorned not only with photos of celebrities, but also with portraits of people whose lives had been transformed by stories that began there. Jake stepped inside and immediately felt a wave of nostalgia. He sat at his favorite table by the window and ordered a medium-rare steak and a glass of that same rare wine Clint had once ordered. When the waiter brought his order, Jake noticed that it was a young man who bore a striking resemblance to himself in those distant days. The guy was a bit cocky, but there was sincerity in his eyes. Jake smiled and asked, "What's your name?" "Michael," the waiter replied. "Why, did I do something wrong?" "No, everything's fine," Jake said. "It's just that you remind me of myself many years ago. I have some advice for you. Never underestimate the people you serve. You never know who might be sitting at that table." Michael nodded, but there was doubt in his eyes. Jake realized the young man wasn't quite ready to hear this lesson, but he hoped that one day Michael would understand its meaning. At that moment, the door to the restaurant opened, and in walked Clint Eastwood. He was older now, but his charisma and confidence remained unchanged. Everyone in the restaurant froze, just as they had many years ago. Clint walked over to Jake's table and sat down across from him. "Well, Jake," he said with a smile, "it seems you've found your place in life." "Thank you," Jake replied. "If it weren't for that evening, I would never have realized how important it is to be better than you were." Clint nodded. "You've done more than just change your own life. You've changed the lives of others, and that's what matters most." They spent the evening talking, reminiscing about the past and making plans for the future. Clint shared that he wanted to pass the Golden Saloon into the hands of someone who would carry on his legacy. To Jake's surprise, he offered him the role of the new owner. "I know you'll make this place even better," Clint said. "You've proven you're worthy." Jake agreed. He returned to the Golden Saloon, not as a waiter, but as a man who inspired others to change. The restaurant became more than just a place for dinner. It became a symbol of hope and opportunity. And Michael, that young waiter, eventually got his chance too. Jake recognized his potential and offered him a place on his charitable foundation's team. Michael, like Jake before him, changed his life, and the cycle continued. And so the story that began with a brash waiter and a legendary actor came full circle. The Golden Saloon remained a place where anyone could find their chance, and Jake and Clint became symbols of how even the most unexpected encounters can change destiny. As Clint Eastwood said in his final interview, "Life isn't just about your own achievements. It's about what you leave behind. And sometimes the most important thing is simply to give someone a chance.